Today, let's recap through the potential movement you have of your spinal cord. So we'll look at forward flexion, backward flexion, lateral flexion and twists, and how we can also combine those together. For instance, how we can bend forward and twist. So let's begin in mountain posture, Tadasana, ensuring we have a firm connection of the soles of our feet with the mat beneath us, the ground, the earth beneath us, and how, like a mountain, it is firmly planted into the earth, yet it rises high, reaches up into the sky, the atmosphere. So have this feeling of lifting upwards from the soles of your feet. You can create that elevation both internally and externally. So think about lifting the skin around your ankles, drawing up through the shins and the flesh on the calf muscles. And then be aware of the continuum that has commenced, as in all parts above want to lift in the same direction. So when you start lifting from down the soles of the feet, the ankles, everything above it wants to rise up too, and you experience the continuum of lift overcome you. So now you've raised the knees, you've lifted at the back of the knees. Elevate up through your thigh muscles, the quadriceps here, the biggest muscle group of the body. And think about the backs of the legs, the hamstrings, elevate those. And then you'll connect with the buttocks. So lift the buttock cheeks and draw the buttock cheeks together. And you'll notice that as you pull the buttock cheeks together, you'll have this natural tilt take place of your pelvis, your pelvic region. The pelvis, many years ago, was known as the basin, for it sits in the body here, and it is the linchpin between your upper and lower regions of the body. So if you have your pelvis, your basin, out of alignment, for instance, you might collapse your stomach muscles, push your chest forward, push your buttocks back, and have this real concaveness of the base of the spine. So effectively, this puts a lot of strain on the base of the spine. So if you think about lifting the buttock cheeks, pulling them together, the natural tilt of the pelvis takes place, sets the basin correctly, so that all your intestines, internal organs, rest in the basin. And then you can continue thinking about lifting up. Because you'll notice that as you have that natural tilt of the pelvis, you'll also then have a natural pulling in of the stomach. So this is helping to create strength in the core. Everything is drawing in towards your core. You lift the flesh from around the hips up towards the waist, and then from the waist girdle, all this flesh here, you think of drawing it up and over the ribs. You become aware of the front of you, the sides of you, the back of you, and it all has this energy, upward lifting, right through to the crown of your head. It's almost as if there's this golden thread from the crown of your head drawing you upwards, whilst you remain firmly feet planted into the earth. You then scan the body for any pockets of tension that you may be harbouring, holding on to, and you release them and let them go, especially with the outward breath. When you breathe out, it's almost as if you are sighing the breath out, letting go, surrendering. However, you are not collapsing any of the lift that you have made. That remains in place. And this is how you find a great sense of equilibrium, balance. If you take now to closing the eyes and looking inward. So you may be able to feel the transference of weight between the feet. You want to centralise this weight. You want to feel as if your total body mass is travelling down through your body, through the linchpin, the pelvic girdle, and down through the legs, and then it disperses itself evenly and equally between your 2 feet. And your toes are soft, for your weight is equal between the balls and the soles of the feet. There is no tension in the toes, they are not gripping into the mat. And use your powers of visualization to picture your central column, your central axis, your spine, and see it perhaps as a metal pole, and you are wrapping yourself around that metal pole, pulling flesh, skin back to muscle, and flesh and muscle back to bone. Everything pulling in toward the core, the place where you commence your origin, your powerhouse, your solar plexus, where raw, latent, infinitive energy exists. Breathe in, breathe out, and see if you can tap into this. Just having the knowledge of your solar plexus found at the back, the bottom, the pit of the stomach. If you were to put your index finger into your belly button and point slightly downward, you would be pointing at your solar plexus. And then open the eyes. So we have a great, strong foundation of a position. We are aligned. We are elevated whilst being grounded. And we'll now look at the true potential of the spinal cord. Let's begin with a forward flexion. Remembering also that with this forward flexion, our head will be beneath our heart. Whereas usually when we stand upright like this, our head is always above our heart. So we're going to invert that to take the head below the heart. Now what happens there is that the blood circulating through you, taking in oxygen when you breathe in, is then going to rush slightly quicker into the brain. And so you want to acknowledge this in the sense of oxygen replenishes you, repairs you, it's revitalizing, it regenerates, it feeds every living cell that is in you, and you are made up of billions of living cells. So having all this extra oxygen come into the brain If you were to stay there too long, you might get too much oxygen in. If you were to come up too quickly, you might find that you get a little bit lightheaded or dizzy. So you want to know these things, thereby you can only stay inverted for what you recognise as being a comfortable time, and that you'll always come up slowly, so you will allow the levels to find their balance and equilibrium. Let's bring our hands onto our hips. The origin of this movement is at the hips, within the pelvic girdle. So we'll be looking to create space here, space at the hips, to hinge over. The mistake many people make when they bend forward is that they round their shoulders, they slouch, they put all the stress on their spine because they allow their stomach muscles to collapse, and they go like this. And sometimes they wonder, or the human wonders, why it can't reach its toes. If you hinge at the hips, it then opens up the more truer potential for this movement. And if you stay connected with the core, your tummy, your stomach muscles, holding on to the spine rather than collapsing forward, so the spine stays strong. So it enables it to stretch and reach as it descends. Let's practice it, and then more of what I say will become clear. Have your hands on your hips. And remember, up here is in your waist. So you want to get at your hips, and then you can use your thumbs just at the back of the hips to give a little gentle pressure, a little gentle push as you go over. So you've got your lovely alignment. You're breathing in, and with every inhalation, you are now habitually thinking space, elevate, lift. It will become second nature. And then you use your thumbs, you gently push the back of the hips over. You move slowly so that you give the body time to adjust and adapt. For already you've taken the heaviest part of your body forward, so your legs will now be feeling a bit of a stretch. You're preparing them for the fullness of this position, so allow the whole of the legs to work. If you're feeling just the stretch in the upper hamstrings, take your mind down into your shins and your calf muscles. Tell them to engage, to lift, to help. You go forward slowly so that you can observe with your inner eye as to whether your shoulders are level and that you're not dropping one side down more than another. You're also having that inner sense of vision, looking at the back of the neck, taking out the creases. There's many things to remember as you practice, but as we have spoken of regularly, with patience and perseverance and dedication to your practice, the more your mind tells your body what to do and how to do it, then the body acknowledges, realizes, accepts, and does. So as you continue to hinge forward, you check in with the toes, ensuring they are not digging into the mat for dear life, that they're relaxed and your body weight is in the heels and balls of the feet. Now remember, at any time as well during your practice, you may get to halfway, and if you've got a chair in front of you, you could rest your arms on a chair and continue working here, pulling in the stomach, observing the legs. So you can have a chair or a table, practice to here. You could have your hands resting onto your thighs, onto your shins. You could have your fingertips, if you then get to the point where your fingertips are touching the floor, you could have a slight bend in the knees so that you could rest during the practice of your movement. And maybe from here, if you bend the knees a bit further and you had your hands down, you could then, as you breathe out, try stretching the legs. There are many avenues, variations and possibilities, and it's up to you to take the journey, the adventure, and discover. So once you do get into the fullness of the position, let go of the back of your neck and head. The crown of your head will point down towards the mat. If at any point the legs do begin to shake, that is your nervous system telling you that you are about to overstretch or overreach. So you should then bend, ease off, come out of the position, connect with your breath again, and then come back into the position. Remember, observe yourself. So, if you are at this level and you're then looking as to do variations from here, you could think about collecting the elbows in the opposite hands and letting your head rest through the hole that you have made with the arms. You could have your hands flat onto the floor and bend and straighten the knees alternately. Indeed, you could do this if you're on your fingertips. You could do this if you're resting onto a chair or a table. You could put your hands underneath your feet. You could turn your hands so that the fingers point in the opposite direction to your toes. There are many variations. So now we remember that we want to come up nice and slowly. We keep our chin on our chest. We walk our hands up our legs as we pull the stomach in, again checking we are not spilling our stomach muscles forward. We are keeping them engaged. We come up, and once the shoulders are aligned over the hips, we can then bring the chin parallel to the mat, and we find ourselves once again in Tadasana. And just have a round of breath here so that you can accommodate the new levels of oxygen in your brain. So that's forward flexion of the spine. Let's now look at backward flexion of the spine. So once again, we have got our firm foundation of mountain posture. You might like to part the feet slightly, having the feet hip width or just less. Again, we'll place the hands on the hips, and we want to think about creating that space, that elevation, we're going to pull up pubis to navel, scoop up, navel to breastbone, lift up. We're going to think of our tailbone and rise up with our energy through that as we breathe in. And then when we exhale, we're just going to move our thighs and our hips forward. We take another breath in, we reconnect to the base of our spine and think lift. We want to continue rising up through the vertebra of our spine. At the very base, the very bottom of your spine, it's called the coccyx. And then you have the sacrum. And the coccyx and the sacrum are flat fused bones. But above the sacrum becomes the dorsal lumbar part of the spine, that's here. And that's when they begin to break into the individual vertebra. So if you can think of these individual little vertebral bones, in between them are discs. So if you create space, you're giving more room to those discs, which enables greater flexibility. So every time you breathe out, you'll just have that little push forward of the hips, of the thighs, but avoid collapsing down. If you feel any pinching in the base of the spine, you've just collapsed down. You actually want to keep the fullness of your torso, all the flesh, lifting up. You're going to dome your chest, your heart space, up towards the ceiling, and then drop the head and neck back, and then breathe in, pull the belly button in and return to an upright standing position. Let's try that once more. Breathe in, create space. Exhale, use the thumbs at the back of your pelvic region to just push the hips forward, the thighs go forward. Breathe in, lift the flesh on the trunk of your body up. Lift from the hips up to the armpits. Exhale, begin to drop the shoulders back, drop the arms, dome the chest up. Lift your heart space up towards the ceiling. Head and neck back. Breathe in, pull the belly button in, rise up. Relax those shoulders away from the ears. Maybe let your hands just drop down for a moment. Give yourself a little bit of a shake if you want to. Release yourself. So we can practice this once more, bringing the hands into play. The hands are going to come up over the head. As we lean back, we're going to open the arms out into a Y position. In the fullness of the backward flexion, you can hold the breath, and it will be to an inhalation that you pull into your core and rise upright. If at any time you feel pinching in the base of your spine, you have collapsed in your trunk and you need to lift everything up. It's not just about lifting the spine, it's about lifting the skin and the back muscles and some of your internal organs, the kidneys. The power of the mind is infinite. The mind is communicating to the body, telling it what to do. So simply know what you want to ask your body to do, ask it, and it shall do. Let's go with the arms here. So we'll take a nice deep breath in and we'll raise the hands up in front of us, up and over the head, keeping the shoulders away from the ears. We've lifted everything else. We've still got that true elevation that we had at the beginning when we was practicing mountain pose. We're reaching up into the ceiling above us, the skies above us, the atmosphere above us. And then we tip the hips and the thighs forward. We continue rising the skin up through the trunk of our body. We drop our head back. We open the arms into a Y position. Hold the breath. Breathe in, pull the belly button in, bring the hands together in front of you, take them down past the third eye and allow them to rest at the heart. Relax the shoulders. Check the feet. Have you got stress and tension in the toes? If so, let that go. And we'll go once more. Breathe in, raise the hands up. Rise up through your torso. Exhale, hinge forward with the hips and the thighs. Drop the head and neck back. Open the arms out into a Y position. Breathe in, pull the belly button in. Bring your hands together in front of you. Pull the stomach in. Really feel strong, secure. Hands to the heart space. Relax your shoulders. Unclench your teeth. And release. So that's forward flexion, backward flexion. Let's do lateral flexion now. Side to side. So we are bending the spine sideways. When you do this, you always look at having your shoulders aligned. So at no point does either one of the shoulders drop out of alignment, i.e. they do not come forward and they don't twist back and out. They stay aligned. It's almost as if you're in between two panes of glass the whole way. And a way to check this as well is to have a wall behind you and you keep the back of both shoulders just touching on that wall and the back of the head, and then you'll really feel the completeness of the stretch. And it matters little if you're only here, but as you breathe into the position and start really acknowledging the space that you can make, and then as you breathe out, it releases a bit further. It's the best way to practice, rather than the ego taking over and going, I can do that, I can get my hand right down to my ankle, but you've dropped your shoulder forward and your ribs have stuck into your stomach. That's simply cheating yourself, or your ego cheating you. So let's try it. Let's take a breath in, and as we exhale, allow our left hand to gently run down the outer edge of our left leg. And just take the time to observe the head and neck. Check the teeth, unclench them. Check the toes, untension them. Shoulders aligned. And then breathe in through the centre and to the other side. Keep the breath flowing. And it really is a continuum of the breath cycle as well, that you do always create space, you do always surrender, you breathe in, breathe out. See if you can synchronize, breathing in through the centre and breathing out to flex laterally. You soon feel a fluidness of movement when you do it in time to your breath. Keep pulling the stomach in as well, and you'll feel the activation of all the stomach muscles. And then bring yourself back to a central position. Let's now bring our hands into what we'd call the Charlie's Angels way of holding them. And we'll breathe in and take the hands up over the head. Relax your shoulders away from your ears. A nice deep breath in. As you exhale, you're going to push your hips to the right. You're going to increase the elevation through the torso, and you're going to lean to the left. Breathe. Pulling into your core as you breathe in through the center. Exhale, push your hips to the left. Stretch out to the right. Now your ears should remain brushing on the insides of your upper arms. That way you know you've got a natural extension of your head and neck. Breathe into the center. Breathe out. Lean to the left. Push your hips to the right. Take the stress out of your toes. Breathe into the center. Exhale, push your hips to the left. Stretch your hands to the right. And breathe in to the center. Bring the hands past the pineal gland to the heart space. And release. So variations of the lateral flexion as well. Use your intuitive sense of self. You could take the left hand down the left leg and draw the right arm over and across the ear. And you can do this to the other side. There are variations. And remember, some of these simple techniques you can apply during your daily chores, even while you're cooking. If you're standing at the cooker, you could do a little bit of lateral flexing of the spine. You can fit yoga in at any time. So, we've done forward flexion, we've done backward flexion, we've done lateral side to side flexion. Now let's do a twist. Let's bring our right hand to our left hip. Let's take our left hand behind us and bring the fingers round to our right hip. Nice deep breath in. Exhale. Begin to turn your spine to the left. Start turning the spine right at the base. Go from the coccyx and the sacrum. Turn the lumbar, the dorsal region. Then the thoracic. There's 12 vertebrae of the thoracic spine, and they are connected to your ribs. Turn those. Turn the skin on your body to aid the twisting spine. But what you want to do is, with your right hand on your left hip, you want to ensure that left hip stays in alignment with the right, because there's every chance that as you turn to the left, you might take your hips as well. But you want both hips facing ahead of you. Now this way you can reduce the size of your waist, because you're really pulling in those waist muscles and turning the flesh, so you're toning the skin on the torso too. So you're twisting to look over your left shoulder. It's your cervical spine, and then the very top, the axis and the atlas, the two bones at the very top of your spine connecting your skull. They turn the last. And then you come back to a central position. And then let's do that on the other side. So we'll bring our left hand across to meet with our right hip. And it holds the hip because it's going to keep it forward. We take our right hand behind us and bring those fingers round to the left hip. If you can turn them upside down so that the index finger is lowest, that can help you keep those hips aligned. Breathe in, lift up, create space. Pull up pubis to navel. Begin twisting your spine to the right. From the bottom, through the middle, to the top. And as you turn to look over your right shoulder, check that your teeth are slightly parted, they are not clenching, the skin on your face is soft, and breathe. And then return to the centre. So a variation on the twist there is that you could begin from your position of mountain. You can take one hand in front of you and one hand behind you, checking that they are level as well, because there will be every chance that the back hand will be low, the front hand will be higher. So just give yourself time to observe, and if you are a bit high-handed, low-handed, lower the front hand, raise the back. That's how you'll get your equilibrium. Just adjust both sides to accommodate each other. Again, you'll always want your hips facing ahead. As soon as your hips start turning, you've missed the true nourishment of drawing in to the core and getting that reduction of flesh and fatty build-up. So you can have one hand in front, one hand behind, and do your twist to look over your shoulder. You can pass back through a neutral, central position, and you can go in the opposite direction. Again, these are easy techniques, and you can fit them in to your daily lifestyle. Sometimes it's a couple of minutes, that's all it takes, but you've done them. You've activated and engaged new possibilities within you. And the more you feed yourself this goodness, the more it becomes second nature. So we've looked at the full potential of the spine there in its forward, backward, sideways, twisting. And now we're going to combine two of them. So we're going to do a forward flexion with a twist. So have your foundation position, nice and strong, toes relaxed. We're going to take a breath in, and we're going to gently, as we exhale, bring our right hand outside of our left thigh, so it's almost lining up with our left hip. Exhale, relax and surrender into it without collapsing. The exhalation, the outbound breath, it is a release. You are surrendering, you are not collapsing though. Another breath in, scoop up internally. Exhale, begin to hinge forward and trace those right fingers down the outer edge of the left leg. Get to a point that's comfortable for you. So if you're just above the knee, that's fine. You can begin to raise that left hand to come out to the side of you. You can bring it shoulder level, rotate it. Just explore, discover, because as you're able to go further down, you can twist more fully to look up towards the raised thumb. Take the time to breathe and observe. And then you pull the stomach in as you retrace your standing position. And then we'll go to the other side. Remember as well, as you combine these two possibilities of the spine, forward flexion and twist, you want to keep your hips level. So let's now bring our left hand outside of our right hip, our right arm simply relaxed down by our side. We breathe in, we create space, pull up pubis to navel, navel to breastbone, and then exhale. Moving consciously so that you're observing the whole time, tracing that left hand down the outer edge of your right leg. You might find that you just want to stop below the knee and then stretch out into that right arm, those right fingertips. You can follow the general suit of how the spine is going by bringing the hands together and then just taking that right hand in its natural movement. And then taking the right fingertips to the ceiling and turning the head and neck to look up towards the thumb. Check that the toes are soft. Observe that the teeth are unclenched. And then breathe in, pull the tummy in, allow the hand to descend as you arise to your standing position. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. Allow the upper arms to drop down toward the fingertips and allow the fingertips to drop loosely toward the floor. Close the eyes. Tune in. Be aware of how you feel internally, externally. Take a look inward. See yourself from this new perspective. Feel and experience what these movements are bringing to you. And then open the eyes. Bring the hands together at the heart. Take time for reflection, for giving thanks, for acknowledging your discipline, your perseverance, your dedication, and may all good circumstance and reactions and benefits come to you. Stay safe in the knowledge that yoga is good for all.